All right, Devin, here we are again.
It's a great hat, Jeremy.
Thank you. I like the color of yours.
Thank you. Yeah, it really brings out the red in my eyes.
Oh, they do, or yellow, a little Sith
Whoa.
hue. So, speaking of yellow, red, Sith eyes,
Yes.
there's a moment where we're at in the Phantom Menace is we're about 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
And they finally arrived on Tatooine.
Yes.
They being Padme and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Jar Jar and R2 and
Captain Panera.
Panera.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that happen. One, we have this moment where Padme meets Jar Jar.
Right.
Then you have this brief conversation between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It's like a 5-second conversation, really.
Yeah.
But in this remark that Qui-Gon makes, he says, "Be wary, I sense a disturbance in the Force."
The hyperdrive generator's gone, Master. We'll need a new one.
That'll complicate things. Be wary. I sense a disturbance in the Force.
I feel it also, Master.
Don't let them send any transmissions.
And Obi-Wan says, "I sense it too."
Yeah.
And it got the wheels turning, Devin.
Ooh, the wheels.
Yeah, what do you think? Is it just Anakin? Is he the disturbance in the Force? What do you think they're referencing in this scene?
Great question, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I want to back up a little bit first, though.
Sure.
Because in that, interlude that begins this scene we've got Padme and Jar Jar and R2. Do you think that the handmaiden who's actually playing the part of Queen Amidala reveled in the fact that she's going to get the queen to have to brush down the astromech droid?
Fantasies were being lived out, Devin.
And listen, I don't think it's a mistake, but that's the one that got blowed up in the ship later. Yeah, we thought it was like some nefarious terrorist. No, it's Padme seeking revenge.
She's just taking out her own handmaidens.
Yeah, exactly right. Make me clean the astromech droid.
So, disturbance?
Disturbance. Disturbance is an interesting word, right? Because usually we consider it to have a negative connotation, at least in our own world, right? Like, oh, there's a disturbance, right?
That's how I take it.
The literal, do not disturb goes on the hotel door, right?
Yes, negative.
So it's interesting to think is it Anakin? Because we have this negative connotation with the word disturbance. So if we're looking at disturbance more as just like a change of frequency within the Force, almost like we would see on a radio bandwidth, then I could say, I think that there might be something there. Maul hasn't arrived at this point.
He's not there,
From every indication from later in the prequels, the Jedi aren't too savvy to the fact that Sith are using them as puppets. So,
correct.
Based on process of elimination, I'm going to have to go with Anakin.
Yeah, and this is one of those, and we're going to have a Patreon video later that kind of delves into this a little bit more about what is this disturbance, what is going on Tatooine. It's obviously somehow connected to Anakin.
Right.
But we have a movie that's going to be rolling out in a few months called The Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
And it seems all indications are pointing to Sheev's return.
Yes.
And Skywalker isn't the only thing rising. It's maybe the Sith, maybe it's Palpatine. We don't know for sure, but we do know that this character is going to show up again.
Right.
In the comics, there's some connotations that Palpatine is involved with Anakin's existence.
Right.
There's obviously an awareness of Anakin from a very young age. We see the very end of the Phantom Menace where we have this dialogue. We'll be, watching your career with great interest.
Right.
So you wonder if the disturbance isn't just Anakin, but it is Palpatine's involvement with the existence of Anakin.
Yeah.
What's interesting about where we're at with Star Wars, and there might be people watching this that will know the answer, months and months from now, years from now. But at this point now, I think we're sort of in a holding pattern that maybe the disturbance is this connectivity between Palpatine and between Anakin. Yeah. If so, again, it's what we see often with Star Wars where we interpret certain things one way and then another film comes out, another TV show comes out, another comic comes out, animation.
Right.
And it changes the dynamic. It's one of the things I love about Star Wars, but do you think I'm kind of taking too big of a leap with this idea, or?
I don't think so, but I think it brings up some more questions, right? So when we talk about a disturbance in the Force, or a variance in the Force, it kind of brings up the question of how close in proximity do they need to be to
Right,
something
right.
before they could feel that?
Yeah.
And I think in addition to that, Anakin at this point in the film is 7-ish or so years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it would be interesting if Sheev was doing his puppetry earlier on to even bring Anakin into existence.
Yeah.
You almost wonder, you hear of like, in sometimes like paranormal stories that like that the house has memories or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And you almost wonder if like the Force has memories too when it comes to
interesting.
like this event that happened there.
Yeah.
And is that just like a swelling of Force memory that causes it to be a disturbance?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things are going to play out
Yeah,
in the next
absolutely.
few months. Time will tell.
It will.